Recently, a school board in Washington state denied a Bible study group access to a community resource fair. Now, usually these are just administrative disputes. However, the reasoning given by the school board members didn't just cross a line, it completely abandoned logic and dipped into some very dark rhetoric about brainwashing and bullying. As Latter day Saints, we are often sensitive to how religious history is portrayed and how faith is treated in the public square. Today, on the Mindful Latter day Saint Christian Living and Apologetics platform, I want to look at the poisoning the well fallacy used recently at the Everett School District in Everett, Washington. And then I want to propose a solution that we, as a community of faith, have, have been using successfully for decades. All right, welcome back, folks. This is Timothy Berman. I'm your host for Mindful Latter-day Saint Christian Living and Apologetics, and I'm here to provide a response to this article that I came across on my Facebook social media feed. And it first was reported by Cairo News, and it is also reported here for the Everett Herald and Everett, Washington for Snohomish County, and its off campus Bible program reps threaten legal action against Everett schools. And so here's the situation. An off campus Bible program wanted a table at a resource fair, just a table to say, hey, we exist. And of course, the Everett School Board said no. In fact, the board president, Tracy Mitchell, justified the reasoning for this by saying that we as a board do not support or endorse programs that provide off campus religious instruction during the school day and prefer that students stay at school. Now, on the surface, this may sound like a scheduling issue. However, let's take a closer look. And, you know, for purpose of discussion, let's take a moment to consider maybe a private soccer club or consider the scouting program of America to have a table at a fair. Now, does this mean that the school is endorsing every merit badge or every soccer drill? Of course not. It is a resource fair. It is to promote community programs and resources for students and parents alike. And so it's about giving options. Now, here's the real issue, because the issue came from board member Charles Adkins, and he compared this voluntary Bible study to the traumatic history of Bureau of Indian Affairs boarding schools. Take a moment to listen to this. And I want to get right to the quote to here because it's right here highlighted so you can read it, because this is the real issue that came from this board member, Charles Adkins, where he compared this voluntary Bible study to traumatic history of Bureau of Indian Affairs boarding schools. I am all too familiar with the dark history that religious education has in this country. Attempts to snuff out the cultures of Native kids. We cannot allow this religious brainwashing and bullying of non Christian and LGBT kids to take place when we can do something to stop it. Now, folks, this is what is referred to as poisoning the well. It is a logical fallacy. Mr. Atkins is taking the horrific forced assimilation of the past, which was a government mandated abuse, and equated it with a 2024 program where parents voluntarily sign a permission slip for their children to study the Bible. By using words like brainwashing and invoking historical trauma, not only is he poisoning the well, he is using loaded language. He is telling the community at large that any Christian instruction is inherently abusive, prejudiced, and dangerous before any religious group is even allowed to set up a folding table. Folks, this is not protecting kids. This is projecting bias and prejudice and intolerance and even religious bigotry. Now, how do we respond to this as members of the faith community? How do we respond to this as parents who desire to have our kids to have some understanding of various cultures and beliefs, and have them be understanding and respecting of differing viewpoints. It is easy to get upset. It's easy to get frustrated. It's easy to get angry. However, in general, as mindful Christians, we want to offer solutions. We don't want to just make mere noise. Now, I want to say that we all believe in a sense of equity here, because true equity means allowing community resources stand on their own merits and trusting parents, not the school board, to decide what is brainwashing and what is faith formation. Now, the school board did mention that they prefer students to stay in school during instructional hours. And you know what? This is a very valid point because education is valuable. This is where I think other denominations could learn a lot from the Latter day Saint community and the Latter day Saint model of seminary. Because for generations, Latter day Saint youth have attended early morning seminary. We don't ask the schools to release the kids during math or English or any other events with it during the school time. We don't even ask for release time. This disrupts the schedule. What we do is we allow the meetings to take place at local ward buildings or stake centers, depending on what area that a student resides in, their parents reside in, and it happens before school starts. Usually early in the morning at 6 a.m. I remember as a youth growing up, I attended early morning seminary, and so I was up at 4 o'clock in the morning getting ready. We went to early morning seminary. We were done. We went to school and we had to stand outside waiting for the library to open up before we can actually go in and sit down. And so I attended seminary for 4 years and I did, like most people, end up receiving a graduation. Now, they've adjusted the seminary to include life skills, which is very interesting, something that is, I think, very important and integral. Now, why is this a better solution, you might ask? I want to offer three reasons why this is a better solution. Academic integrity, because first and foremost, it respects the teachers. We are not pulling kids out of class. What we want to value is education in parallel with religious education. And then next, it's true voluntarism. If a teenager wakes up at 5:30 a.m. to study the scriptures, they aren't being brainwashed. What they are doing is they're making a commitment for themselves to make necessary sacrifices, which builds character in a way that's convenient, midday break could never do. And then there's the third point, which is organic growth. If you truly want to be able to share the gospel, you don't need a school resource fair to do this. What we want to do, and what I want to encourage, is parents and students alike whose lives are so distinct, so filled with light from that morning study, that they naturally invite their friends to attend. We allow this to be organic in its growth. Now, we may be able to fight legal battles because this is what the whole entirety of the articles is all about, is that LifeWise is feeling that their First Amendment, their constitutional right to be present to provide a resource, has been violated. And I can see there's a legal precedence. However, let's look at the higher truth here, folks, because the best way to counter this isn't to fight legal battles for access. And while I agree that sometimes we may need to do this, we also need to recognize that poisoning of the well we see in the Everett is a symptom of secular society that isn't simply going to go away because they're not going to understand faith. They're not going to understand faith traditions. And so the best way to counter that isn't just a lawsuit. What's going to counter that is showing up, engaging in the public square with love, and perhaps maybe finding ways to practice our faith that requires a little more sacrifice from us and a little less accommodation from the state. And we can do that by incorporating the reality of implementing and maybe encouraging the local churches within the Snohomish County area and Everett, and by and large within our nation, to adopt a similar curriculum and program where students can come to a specific church or local churches to have early morning Bible studies. They can sign up, they can be volunteer to do this. And this is another way we can minister to the community and allow the students to invite their friends to come in and have that Bible study. And you negate the need to be present at these resource fairs. You negate the animosity between secular community members and those of the faith community, and hopefully provide a necessary bridge. And so hopefully this is a practical approach. So what do you think? Was the school board protecting kids, or is it just revealing their own bias? And would you, as a parent, would you, as a member of the Christian faith community, maybe support an early morning style program for your church? Let me know in the comment section below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more mindful takes on faith and culture. I'm your host, Timothy Berman, and until next time, be blessed, be encouraged, and be filled with the grace of God, pressing forward with steadfast faith through Him, because it is He that lives through us, not that we live according to our own will and purpose. And have a great day.
Most of you were taught the truths of the gospel from the time you were a toddler. You were taught by loving parents and caring teachers. Soon you entered that period some have labeled the terrible teens. I prefer the terrific teens. What a time of opportunity, a season of growth, a semester of development marked by the acquisition of knowledge and the quest for truth. No one has described the teenage years as being easy. They're often years of insecurity, of feeling as though you just don't measure up, of trying to find your place with your peers, of trying to fit in. Oh, there will be times when you'll face challenges which might jeopardize your testimony. Or you may neglect it as you pursue other interests. I plead with you to keep it strong. The world around you is not equipped to provide the help you need to make it through this often treacherous journey. Some years ago, I was on a board of directors with a fine man who'd been extremely successful in life. I was impressed with his integrity and his loyalty to the church. I learned that he had gained a testimony and had joined the church because of seminary. When he married, his wife had been a lifelong member of the church. He belonged to no church. Through the years, and despite her efforts, he showed no interest in attending church with his wife and children. He began driving two of his daughters to Early Morning Seminary. He would remain in the car while they had their class. Then he'd drive them to school. One day it was raining, and one of his daughters said, "Come in, Dad. You can sit in the hall." He accepted the invitation. The door to the classroom was open, and he began to listen. His heart was touched. For the rest of that school year, he attended seminary with his daughters, which led eventually to his membership and a lifetime of activity in the church. Let seminary help build and strengthen your testimony. It is up to you to keep that testimony alive. As with the flame of a brightly burning fire, your testimony, if not continually fed, will fade to glowing embers and then cool completely. You must not let this happen. When you have the chance to be involved in seminary, take advantage of that opportunity. How grateful I am for the opportunity I had as a teenager to attend Early Morning Seminary, for it played a vital role in my development and the development of my testimony. Seminary can change lives. As with anything in life, much of what you take from your seminary experience depends on your attitude and your willingness to be taught. May your attitude be one of humility and a desire to learn. Effort is required, but it is effort you will never, ever regret.